welcome to this skills workshop as part of the LWIN Innovate Ealing program that is brought to you by West London Business and LWIN. It's funded by Ealing Council via their business and regeneration team, and they are promoting over the next 6 months their London Living Wage scheme for employers, so that you've got an opportunity to gain the badge you can see on the screen, the London Living Wage Employer, which does more than just say, we pay our staff a decent wage. It gives better staff retention and offers you insight into how to grow your business sustainably. And it's something that's important to Ealing Council, is that people are taking up this London Living Wage option, because we have Ealing as a London Living Wage place, and we want to see the economy grow and thrive, and one way of doing that is by being responsible employers. So that's something to think about. If you want more details, we'll send them out after the session. Got a few people joined at the moment. Just some logistics for the session today. There is a chat function, so you can use that, or there is also the webinar questions. I think we've got that somewhere, don't we, Amy? And if you want to type in questions or ask specifics about your situation and look for some ideas, happy to do that. Rather have people interacting with me than me talking and talking and then continuing to talk. So yeah, if you look for the Q&A box, that's also available. Amy and I can see those, so if you drop them in there, we'll be able to respond. Or if you want to pop anything in the chat, please do so. So welcome, and we'll get started. We have an hour scheduled for this morning, so wanted to talk to you about business partnerships and ways to develop them, and look at some ideas around how you can do that. And as I say, the examples I prepared are for illustrative purposes, but if you want to talk about specifics for your business, happy to take those questions as we go. So who am I? Tony Mulvale. I'm the program manager for LWIN, based in West London. I run a company called Planning for the Best, as well as being a part-time lecturer at the University of West London, and have gained qualifications in Association for Project Management, Association for Corporate Treasury, and the Institute of Leadership and Management as a level 5 executive coach and mentor. So background in business growth, and before that worked in the city on large and small projects and business development. What we want to talk about today is the concept of going alone versus working with partners, because if we look at something like the cheetah, fastest land animal on the planet, but it tends to hunt alone, has a capacity of 200 to 300 meters when it's chasing something, takes less than a minute. They're not very strong in terms of stamina, can't climb trees. Typically they have a 50-50 success rate, so that's a bit of a coin toss as to whether they're going to win, and they can't climb trees. And one of the things when you're in the African savannah is having your food up a tree keeps it away from some of the bigger cats, so they tend to be quite precarious in their life. But what we talk about with sustainable partnerships is developing ways of a collective memory, if you like, of the way we work. And that brings us to the African proverb around, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And elephants are an example of that, where the strength is in the herd and the way they work together, and the older females look after the younger ones, and there is a distinct order around how we partner with each other, where we go to get food, water, and on our journey. So that's the kind of key behind that. And one of the things we've done at LWIN over the last 15 years is build up a series of partnerships through collaborating with local authorities. So you can see in the sort of top part of this slide, we've worked with Ealing, Hounslow, Brent, Hillingdon. We are currently working with Southwest Hearts and the chamber there, also in Wandsworth, Lambeth, and a couple of other places that are under discussion at the moment. We've also worked with chambers, and West London Business is one of those organisations we've partnered with to help deliver this session to you. And final part is some of the universities, so University of West London, and also the recently launched Heathrow SME Academy. And these partnerships have been something that have been built up over time. There's been a distinct approach to identifying, approaching and engaging with these partners and looking at what do we gain from working with these businesses. So we gain the funding to deliver these workshops to you for free, as well as the one-to-one support we offer. So that's an ongoing process, and this is a 15-year map. It's not a, oh yeah, we did this last week. So it takes time, and I think that's one of the things to be really aware of when you're building up your partnerships, is that it is a journey. It's not just a, oh yeah, I'll talk to someone and something will happen. It's that ongoing discussion. So what we're going to talk about today is value exchange between business models, and that is the thing to take away with this whenever I'm looking for a partner is, what do we want from the partnership? How are we going to get value from that partnership? And what's the value that we bring to our partner, and what value do they bring to us? And that can be a very simple thing. As a business owner, I need to understand more about making tax digital. I want to learn about that. Can I go off and research all of that myself? Yes, I can, but I might be better off partnering with an accounting firm who's already done that research as part of the beta program around making tax digital and leveraging their experience. So I'm exchanging the time I would have spent learning about all of this for some value with a partnership with an accountant who can help me understand it in a more in a faster manner, but also help me with the clients I'm working with, so I can say, well, look, here are the questions to ask your accountant. These are the steps you need to take in order to get yourself into the digital space. So these sorts of activities and partnerships will vary depending on the size of your organization, the industry you're in, and the type of outcome that you want from doing this. So for smaller companies, it's probably about partnering people who are going to complement the skills that we want to bring into our organization. For larger companies, it can be more about supply chain. It can be about looking for ways to integrate into a supply chain in terms of catering might be one example. If I'm using vending machines and want to market my vending machines, do I market them to big suppliers like Heathrow or the NHS, or do I look for somebody who's already got a contract with Heathrow and the NHS and say, can I place my vending machines with you as part of an agreement? So we have to think about, what steps can we take to build up those partnerships? And as I said, if you've got questions, you want to talk about them, just drop them in the chat. So one of the things that we might want with a partnership, particularly if we're talking with organizations like Mighty, ISS, some of the big providers in that space, is understanding of ISO 9001, that quality management system. How do we go about doing what we do? And that demonstrates to that client that we have a way of organizing and running our business that's sustainable and clear. Other qualifications we might want to have are the ISO 14001, which is the environment qualification, and also ISO 18001, which is the health and safety, but that's been supplemented now by a different qualification. And with ISO, you're looking at, what do we do? How do we do it? Why do we do it? And so that process lends itself to being able to describe to a potential client, a potential partner, what it is we do and how it is we do it. And we've got the documentary evidence to back it up. And this documentation does not need to be complex, but it does need to be comprehensive and explain clearly why you do this, purpose of it, and the outcome from that. And so By doing that, we also understand more about what we do and how we can collaborate more effectively with our partners. So that gives us a bit of a starter for that. We've documented what we do. So when we've had the initial conversation with the partners, yes, we could work with you, we understand how we're going to bring value to that relationship. And so the other piece when we talk about growing your business is to understand the feasibility, the desirability, viability, adaptability of our business model. And this is all based around the business model canvas. Desirability, is it something that people want? If we have this and we have customers and they see the value in our product, then we can proceed with that. But if we have no sales, then we really need to look at our value proposition. Feasibility really talks about how can we do this well and continue to do it in a sustainable manner. So feasibility is all about the processes, the people, and the systems that we need to make our business scale up effectively. And if we think about our vending machine provider, they need to have machines that are functional and operational. They need to have product that goes into the machines. They need to have locations that they can put them in. And so those are the key things they need from a partner: is access to locations, access to the right area in a building, which has the footfall you need to actually say, right, we're going to use this machine. Where can we put the vending machine? If it's in a corridor out the back of the building, probably nobody's going to use it. But if it's in a lobby, a foyer, or a staff canteen, then it's more likely people will have access to that machine. And then we need to be viable. Revenue must be greater than our cost, otherwise we go bust and we don't have a viable business. And we need to be able to adapt as well. So innovation is all about constant adaptation. How do we innovate and adapt and make sure that we are progressing with our business and continue to deliver value to our clients? And purpose now is becoming more important as well. When we talked at the start about the London living wage, that is very much a case of adding social value to your business. You're paying your employees a decent wage. The London living wage is £13.85 an hour. And by doing that, you demonstrate that you are an employer who cares about their staff, and that adds the social value that you bring to your business. You're offering well-paid jobs for people that is above the living wage and gives them decent income and a decent life. So we also look at the other eco parts around this, which is waste. It could be that if we have electronic equipment, we want that to be disposed of and recycled. Copper can be stripped out. So there's lots of different ways that we can add to our purpose. And when we're putting this all together and we talk to you one-on-one, we tend to focus on the business model canvas and the journey through that around the different segments in there. There are 9 segments plus the social environment and the benefits and impacts that we have. And when you put that all together, your economic, your environmental, and your social impact give you the overall social value to this. And as part of the social impact, we can also talk about the circular economy. Is recycling, making, repairing, reusing goods. I work with a pallet yard, and they basically buy and sell secondhand pallets. So they're able to say, well, the lifetime of a pallet is about 8 years, and the carbon offset you get from doing that is this value. And if you are buying pallets from them, you can demonstrate that you're not buying new pallets, and that reduces your carbon footprint. It also means that you're having an environmental impact that you can measure. So there are different ways that we can do this, and hiring local, creating apprenticeships, ethical working practices, all of these activities add to the value we bring to our business, and they are things to consider when we're looking at our social value. So what types of partnerships do we have? And there will be some exercises here as well for you to think about. Okay, so how do I build partnerships? Can be strategic alliances. So Balfour Beatty, Vinci and Sinstra are working as a joint venture in Old Oak Common to build a new station there. So there's 3 different organisations bringing different specialties together to build a fairly major infrastructure project. We have supply chain partnerships where we talked about the kind of the vending machine example. It could be you're a catering company and you're looking for a new vending machine provider. So there could be an opportunity there for you to get access to larger companies through a supplier or a client who's going to supply your product into their sites. So again, that's one way of building up those partnerships. And once you've reached a certain level, you may have your own capacity then to deal directly with the clients that you want to deal with. There's sort of this co-opetition idea, which is working together and collaborating to make things work. Tends to work better for smaller businesses where I've got a product that is good for the market. It could be in the cybersecurity, physical security space. One company focuses on the technology and the systems and the infrastructure you need from that technology space. Another could work on the physical security, but between the two of you, there are overlaps between protecting the site. Some of that's going to be physical security, some of that's going to be CCTVs, recordings, that sort of activity. So there's lots of different ways to think about partnering with that. And as I said, if you've got any questions, just drop them in the chat and we can pick up on them. And then joint ventures to develop new products. And this was a joint venture between Polaris and Zero Motorcycles, looking at ways to provide electric engines for motorcycles. How do you bring that together and make that work when both companies do differing things, but they are complementary, and you can join up physically a motorcycle engine with a motorcycle frame. With an electric engine, you can then make it work more efficiently and work with the motorcycle companies to make it fit their product. So sometimes we're looking to say, how do we create more than just the sum of the parts in that process? So outcomes. We can optimize. We might generate new IP, new resources. We could also look at some economies of scale as well, because we might be a cabinet maker, we need glass. We don't really want to create a glass factory and manufacture glass, so we might partner with somebody who does that as a business, and then they've got the scale to invest in equipment, CNCs, different ways of producing glass that fit our carpentry product. But also it means that we can reduce some of the risk as well by subcontracting some of that activity out. And it also means that we continue to focus on our core capabilities and what we're really good at, and subbing this out to somebody means that we get the benefit of their expertise and it doesn't dilute the way we run our business. I think that's an important idea to bring into play with the development of products. Same with services. How do we improve our service through a joint venture where one person brings expertise in terms of accounting or supply chain management, that sort of activity, procurement as an example, versus our core capability, which is running projects and managing delivery. So those partnerships, we can use them to scale up and provide a more stable base, because we're also bringing that experience in and not reinventing the learning from our partners. Some thoughts around this. Talked a little bit about the idea of partnering, but why? Does anybody have any partners, or anybody they're looking for partners at the moment? And some thoughts around why they might want to partner with them. Okay, so there's some ideas here as well around are we able to improve customers' expectations, or do we need to look at something to say, okay, how do we improve this situation? Again, I'll keep talking about vending machines, but old school vending machines. Hi Maria. Old school vending machines, very static. You can only put certain products in. New machines are a bit more flexible. They have a way of being able to add different products in different ways, and you can provide a much wider range of product rather than just focusing on a traditional snack machine. So there's different ways of connecting up that type of activity. We can look at cost optimization in the food manufacturing space. What we're looking at there is saying, if I make a product and my product involves pastry, I can make the pastry myself, but it's going to take me 4 hours to do that. I'm going to need to have a kitchen, I'm going to need to have a food hygiene rating, and there's a number of things that I need to have to do that. I might say for my pastry, actually I can sub that out to a third party who can make the pastry at a much lower cost per meter or whatever we're looking at. So the unit cost can be reduced, the time cost is reduced as well, and I get pastry delivered to me that meets my requirements, and then I can convert that into the food that I want to convert rather than me being in a kitchen all day long. And so when I'm going to sell my product at a market stall or in a shop, I've got a lower cost of production that says this is how I've optimized my costs, and I'm actually able to generate the revenue from that. And it can be quite extraordinary sometimes when you're dealing with equipment manufacturers or so original equipment manufacturers, for example, in the technology space, where you can get machines produced at a much lower cost per unit than you would do if you were trying to do it in your own workshop. Maria, did you have a question, or you were just saying hi? So looking to partner with the council, we can definitely have a catch up and a one-to-one and look at ways that might happen. I mean, there's also the Act and Bid, as an example, is offering a makers market in September. So there might be other ways of connecting with other organisations, not just the council. The council tends to provide the site. The event organisers are the ones that tend to actually run the actual event based on renting or getting access to the site from the council. So I'm in Acton. I know that the Acton Arts Association in North Acton near the playing fields, they run those sorts of workshops, and they might be a good person to partner with, where you could participate in those sorts of events. So that's one way of doing that. You've got Hanwell, you've got the Ealing Festival. There's lots of different things coming up. So it's probably more about identifying partners who are using or running those events rather than the councils themselves, would be my initial thought on this. But again, we can also have a conversation with the Regen team at Ealing Council. So Andrea and Sophie there might be able to give us some ideas about who are organising these events and have connections for us as well. So we're also looking at different partnerships around financial partnerships. That could be where someone lends us money to grow the business, and then where we've got the funding we need to grow the business. So looking at this and thinking about the key partnerships, we want to think about who are our key partners, who are our key suppliers, what are the resources that we want to gain and acquire from our partners, and what are the key activities that our partners perform for us. So if anybody's got any successful partnerships at the moment, happy to have those in the chat, or has anybody got any questions about that at the moment? So for our strategic partnerships, we could be looking at technology providers who can offer us more efficient administration solutions. So there are tools out there that are relatively low cost to build and deliver. So there's a tool like Zapier, which is an automation solution that enables you to move data around. There are other solutions like that where you might say, okay, I could learn how to build this all myself. Maybe I can get someone to do it for me who can at least build an initial setup for me that I can then build on top of that. There could be, if we think about the accounting example, I can partner with my accountant to provide them with or accountants to provide them with bookkeeping services. If I'm a bookkeeper, if I'm a vendor, it's partnering with companies like Ali or and other catering companies who have that access to those products. Anybody got any strategic partnerships they're thinking about? Don't have to name the company, could just be the industry they're in or or the products that they offer. But these should be relevant to you and your business. So it should be thinking about, okay, so who are my partners? What do they look like? Dom, thanks. Looking to establish new partnerships to offer more cyber security services. So that's a great way of leveraging that technology expertise. And if you are a company who wants 24-hour, 7-day a week coverage for your cybersecurity, then a local person can't always be awake for all those sorts of times. And yes, it does enhance what you're doing because it gives you that broader capacity to meet customer demand. The service is available when the customer needs it, rather than waking you up at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, "Can you fix this, please?" Looking at used or surplus industrial assets are destined for recycling, shredding, incineration, landfill. So yeah, that's one way of going out there and saying, right, if you've got an end of life product, what are you going to do with that? Bring it in, recycle it, strip out all the metal in there, and try to prevent things from going to landfill, because in the economic scheme, if we're able to recycle and reuse older materials, and that is better than burning them and putting them into landfill. So yeah, the more we can reuse and recycle, then the lower our environmental impact. So those sorts of partners would be, in this instance, companies. I mean, it could be companies that are waste collectors who are looking for someone who can partner with them to do that kind of reclamation work that you're talking about there. SP, is that Sean or another name? Sat. Great, thanks, Sat. Yeah. So again, looking at what would that look like. I know we talked a little bit about recycling fiber optic cable and things like this. So there are different ways of using that. And it's always best to think about, things that could be critical to your business again and make a substantial difference to the way you work and resource and support your business. So, which ones are critical to your business? Who are our critical suppliers? Which of our suppliers and partners are sourcing our key resources? And what type of partnership best suits our needs? Is it a formal venture? Is it an informal venture? Is there a formal fee-paying structure for introductions? It really depends on that sort of thinking. So the assets we're trying to leverage, so what does our partner offer to us? So that could be access to markets, it could be available support for solutions we don't have in the facilities management space. So a company like CBRE or Equans may be looking for fire alarm installers. That fire alarm installer is a part of a bigger activity, and there are specialist topics in the fire alarm installation space around fire safety curtains. My company might not offer fire safety curtains, but we have a subcontractor who can do that. So if that's something that's needed, then we're saying, well, actually, one of our partners is going to be a fire curtain provider. So we would look to see, okay, so who is it that we're going to bring in? What's the value that they bring in? They bring in expertise around fire curtains, installation of them, maintenance of them, that sort of activity. And when we want to leverage that expertise as part of our business model, so we can offer it as a service for our fire alarm or fire safety and installation activity. So we can look at leveraging that skill, that expertise, and that know-how. So that's one of the things to think about. What do we actually want to leverage from these? So what is our partner going to offer us? So that's something to think about. If anybody's got any thoughts on that. Okay. Access to supply chain. Yep. So that could well be, yeah, some of the larger mains, Mighty, ISS, BBVS, BBVJS, all of those sort of organisations who've got the bigger infrastructure that supports larger projects. We might want to be able to plug into them and say, okay, so they can leverage their connections for us. Mighty is another one where they've got a large number of divisions that work in rail, air, that sort of activity. Yep, Don extended coverage and expertise as well. So thinking about how do we expand our offer and how do we demonstrate that we are a provider that meets those customer requirements. And what leverage do we offer our partners? So what does our partner value in us? And in the example of the accountant with the bookkeeper, it could simply be it could be an increased revenue opportunity for the partner. So the accountant might be able to win new clients, and we become the bookkeeper for the client, and there's a revenue sharing opportunity there, where maybe 10% of the client revenue for the bookkeeping goes to the accountant and 90% goes to me as the bookkeeper. And that way we're offering a monetary value to the client. Some of it could be the actual, and in Don's example, if we're hiring experts to cover this gap, we're going to pay them for that. That's the value it brings, but it also brings them access to those markets, additional clients that they might not have dealt with, and other ways of expanding their business as well. And then, what does our partner value in us? It may be our connections, it may be our capabilities that they've seen in the market. It might also be our expertise in joining together differing products or services and generating a whole that is a consolidated product or service for a consumer. So in doing that, we've got ways of linking together the products and providing a better solution across the board. And our partner might even be leveraging our expertise or our brand recognition and value. And so how are we going to collaborate and connect? It's around this idea of what do we do and what do we need to do it? So what the activities are and what the resources are that we need for that successful partnership. So one space around relocation services, it might be there's a moving company that does office moves and things like this, but the part of that expertise could be project management. So you might have that project management background, and you might want to say, well, actually, if I partner with moving companies to help manage some of those moves to some of the larger companies, and that could be as a kind of contract arrangement where we provide additional support where their demand has exceeded their capability to manage some of those moves, or they might be doing something where they need some additional support at short notice. So you could partner with someone like that to say we're experts in planning and delivering office moves, and we work with well-known and respected moving companies to deliver for them. So there's a differing way of looking at this. One might be where we've partnered with them as a kind of delivery manager of choice. The other might be where we advertise ourselves as move experts, but we partner with a office move company who actually does the physical work. So we might be good at planning the building setup, looking at what needs to be installed, looking at ways that the office needs to be configured, and working with a client to make that office move, but connecting with a mover who's actually going to physically move equipment for them. So there's different types of activities we perform, and there are different sorts of resources that we bring. Some resources are expertise and know-how, some of them are physical resources, and as an example of that, in that food manufacturing example, if I've got a pastry making machine, then I can use that as my key physical resource to make that pastry for those clients. And workshops to identify challenges. Yeah, it's a good one as well, Sam, is partnering with people who can run those workshops and pull out the challenges around the reuse recycle space and potentially offer different thinking about how to actually use the materials and ways of creating something new from something old. Yep, I think that's a good one as well, Don. The filling gaps. So you've got IT support and services. You can refer each other on that. SEO prospects. That could be a marketing agency as well. So you're doing the, you're working with the web developer. You give them the IT support, but also they've got that SEO insight, or they may know another agency who does the SEO activity. So again, there's that sort of referral mechanism. But always when we are doing this, we need to make sure there's a return on our investment. That ROI is critical to success, because there's no point in spending £100 to make £100 because we're not making a return on that investment. We've simply used our money, and in worst case we might lose the money, but we're not seeing any growth as a result of that. So we've always got to think is, am I going to get 10, 15, 20, 30% return on the effort I put into this? And that return needs to include the time and effort of the team in doing that, as well as the actual revenue that might be generated as a result of that. So sometimes people forget about time being part of that, and the value of time. So particularly for startups, sometimes we can do a lot of work and realize that we've spent a lot of time in this and we haven't actually generated any revenue from it. So we need to be really aware of, if I'm going to do this, I want a 50% return on my investment might be the benchmark I've got, because that enables me to reinvest in my business and pay people and do things like that. So we need to think about the result of the value. So what value do we get from that? So there's some ways of thinking about the ROI for this, and sometimes you might think, well, actually, are we going to do this as a loss leader and then look to build up the business from there? I always think that's a difficult place to start, because if it doesn't make money, it's harder to raise prices or to generate more value to make the money from this. It may be better to look at pricing structures that meet demand and enable you to generate the value you're looking for. But you can only do that if you fully understand your costs. So that ROI should be a fully costed exercise. We understand your overheads, your expenses, and the net profit you gain from it. So you can say, yeah, look, this is a truly valuable ROI for me. Any thoughts, questions on that? Most of this has been in the chat, which is good. Okay, thanks, Attic. So landlords retrofit, to meet the C rating EPC. So again, changes in regulations mean that landlords and housing associations need to achieve certain energy ratings. So being able to go and inspect a property and look at how do you improve that property on a retrofit basis, because knocking down a building and building a new one is not a cost-effective way of doing things. So something like that, Attic, you can partner with organisations like A2 Dominion, Shepherd's Bush Housing Association, other larger landlords like that, or with some of the HMOs and private markets that are out there. And your private landlords might be using a management company to do all of their repair work and ongoing activities. So it might be that a property management company is a better partner for you, because it'll give you access to multiple private landlords than trying to find private landlords one by one. So there could be a different way of generating a group. Yeah, sure. Drop me an email afterwards, Attic, and I can have a look at a couple of people that I can introduce you to. Okay. Cool. So again, and with Attic's example, energy ratings and connecting up to those people, that's going to be time spent developing and identifying, who those potential partners are, what they could look like, and then approaching them and discussing your value proposition with them. And that is all going to be time that you spend doing that. So your time as the business owner will be spent in that space. So how much time am I willing to spend? What does a return on my time look like for that? So if I pick up one property management company that gives me access to 25 landlords and I get this much revenue out of it, say for example, I get £10,000 of revenue from dealing with 1,000 landlords, that might be great. But if I've spent 3 months doing this to actually get the work in the first place, is that a valuable return on my time and effort? And my initial thought would be actually no, not in that example. So again, it needs to be thinking about how do I optimize that approach of developing those partnerships and reducing the amount of time I spend or increasing the revenue I generate as a result of that activity. So again, thinking about your time, your messaging, your pricing drives those conversations. Any other thoughts on that? Yeah, Attic, I have your email address, so I can drop that to you. Thank you. So moving on to partnerships and subcontracting. We can partner or subcontract to improve our customer expectations or meet or exceed them. We get access to new markets, new customers. So Attic talking to a property management company gives access to a larger number of landlords. We can develop solutions that fill a gap. We can look at ways of optimizing costs, scale, that sort of thing. So there's differing ways that we benefit from connecting with these partners. And we're always thinking about the value exchange. What's the value to me? What's the value to my partner, my collaborating partner in this? And how do I make sure that I am generating value for myself in my business, but also for their business, because the partnership won't last if there's no value for the partner or for ourselves. So we need to really work on that and continue to focus on it. So agreements, they can be very informal, as I said, or they can be very formal and involve a contract and a terms of agreement. And this is often driven by the scale of the business. So two business owners saying, well, I'll help you secure these sorts of clients if you help me do this. And that could just be as far as the agreement goes. Or it could be a fee, or it could be a much more defined revenue sharing opportunity. But when the conversation moves into that realm of complex negotiations about costs and structures, etc., then sometimes having a formal contract can help you make sure that you've got the right boxes ticked to protect yourself in that process. Because where you get into these more formal agreements, you want to make sure that your partner is delivering their part of the bargain, that there are set targets, that you have agreed on what you're going to do and what it looks like, any milestones involved, and how do we make sure that the work is done to the level that's required. All of these things are really important. There are a few people out there who provide you with templates for this. So for example, Federation of Small Businesses or West London Chambers have some templates that you can use for that sort of contractual piece that give you a bit of head start. Although we know now that generative AI can also generate some of those templates, but with all these things, be cautious with that to make sure that the contract is going to be legally binding. So you might want a legal opinion before you start signing documents about terms and conditions and the impact of the agreement being broken. So that is up to you as the owner as to how complex you make it, how formulaic, how formal your agreement is between you and the other party. If you're working with a council, you're working with a tier one supplier, you're probably going to have to need a much more formal agreement, because there's going to be performance contracts, performance figures, delivery mechanisms, standards required. Voca, yes, I can provide you with a link on that, as we spoke yesterday. Can put that in place with you, and legally binding signatures as well. And you can use tools like DocuSign or other sort of third-party products like this to transfer documents electronically and develop electronic signatures, and that's another way of reducing the paperwork in terms of physically mailing things around or losing documentation. So when we're thinking about collaborations and partnerships, it's a whole new way of looking at that, and we think about, okay, so are we sharing operations? Is it transformation in terms of capacity and building things as an infrastructure material? And in the supply chain, it's always good to do your research to say, okay, where do we fit in the supply chain? What is our part in this, and how do we work with our partners to generate that? Heathrow, as a main contractor, has a very long supply chain. They're very keen to promote SMEs as part of that, but there are also differing companies that they work with, Mighty, Fujitsu, Atcoa for parking. So there's lots of differing people involved in that. And we also think about, okay, so there is an approach to this, and there is a way of going about building up a structured set of steps around how do we partner with people. So it might be we identify our business channels. So we've got some vending machines. We want to be able to place the vending machines in suitable locations where there's sufficient footfall in order for us to generate the revenue we want from the vending machines. And also, it may be one of the challenges there is that we can only travel so far to deliver and stock these vending machines. So at the moment, we're not big enough to work in a place like Cardiff or Newcastle. Eventually that might be the goal, but for the time being, we want to build and grow locally. So we need to do that market research. What is the demand for our product? Is there a demand for our product? What do people think of the product? It could be that we trial the product first of all and say, okay, so this is what we could do with our product. This is what it looks like, and these are potential partners for us as well. So we've done the first pass of research, say, look, is there a market for this? What sort of opportunities are out there? And then what do we want from a partner? So why would we want to partner with someone and lay out a kind of proposal, if you like, to say, this is what we want to do? We can go through the partnership canvas and think about the steps to take to populate that canvas, look at the value transfer between the two parties. What's the ROI? Have we identified the right partners for us? And then once we've got that sort of proposal laid out, is to say, okay, so who could these partners be? Not who will these partners be, but who could these partners be? Because we need to have a list of people to talk to that until we've engaged with them in the next step and talked with them, we're not sure if we can work with them. So we build up a list. That's going to be a bigger list. It is a pipeline. Then we engage with the shorter list. And as we get, yes, we can do this. The company values are the same. What we want to achieve is aligned. The value that we bring to each party generates the ROI that is suitable for both parties. So once we've agreed with that, then it's okay. The next step is to say, okay, so what's the design going to be? Are we going to be a joint venture? Is it going to be a formal arrangement, informal arrangement? And we might want to trial this as well. So the eighth step is to prototype or trial an arrangement and continue to kind of test and experiment and iterate to that before we can launch the agreement and say, right, this is now what we're doing. So it could be with our vending machine operator. They want to go and work with Alior, who are a big catering company, but Alior is saying, look, we'll give you 2 machines in the University of West London. We'll put them in the heart space and they'll look like this in here. and then we'll trial that for a 3-month period, and then we'll review it to say, okay, what's working. And weekly we might have updates to say what's happened with the machine, how is it performing, what's the revenue look like, and start to build up a picture over time. So we've got the data, we've got the information, and we've got the ROI coming out of that before we continue to expand with that partner. So whenever working on this and putting your proposal together, who are our key partners, who are our key suppliers, what are the key resources we're gaining from them, and what are the key activities that they perform for us. So again, stepping through that and using that as a framework for thinking will get you a better result for your partnership activity. And this is all available via the business model canvas, so you can start to build on some of that and looking at the differing models and how does that value move between them. It may be that in all of this discussion we've had this morning that you've come up with 3 completely independent things you need to do to build your business. That's great. Make a note of them. Think about, okay, so what am I going to do by when? I was in a meeting last night, and one of the key things that always comes out of those conversations is who is going to do what and when are they going to do it? Because 1, we have an action. 2, we actually have an action owner who is accountable for doing that, and they've agreed to do it by a specific date. So that's something that matters because you're able to generate that accountability and actually get the work done. Happy for you to email them to me if you want and comment on them, but commit to these things I'm going to do. Next 3 things for the next week could be takeaway, write down my business requirements for a partner. And I'm going to do that by next Friday, which is going to be the 1st of August, and it's going to be me. Yes, okay, the recording will be available on the Brandon channel. Once that's done, we will send out an email to participants with the information. And just about coming up to the end of this, we did the program launch a couple of weeks ago. We're talking about winning new partnerships today. On the 26th of November, we're looking at early stage sales and how do you actually scale up your sales model to make it more effective. The 15th of January is the Business Models at Work Blueprint for Success workshop. In December, we have our growth sprint, which is going to be based in Southall at the Parkside Yards. And then we have our Business Boost growth sprint, which will be in Park Royal as well. So you're welcome to attend either of those 2 events and that date. Amy and the team at West London Business send out the links ahead of this, so you get the reminders before the sessions. And if you haven't done so already, and there will be a note sent out afterwards with a link to book some one-to-one time with me. There is a free one-to-one session with this that we offer as part of the Ealing program, and we'll talk through how to go about and develop those actions to take the next steps with your business. And here's some examples of business who have done this. The pallet company I talked about, they've got a contract with Heathrow and one of the partners there. Commercial cleaning companies have come in and developed connections with the NHS to become preferred suppliers in that space. Window suppliers, again, we talked a little bit about that, but that's where a window company is the main supplier to a joinery company for making of cabinets. Building trade, EV charging. So the EV charging there is about becoming the number 1 installer for a larger company who have the contract to actually, roll out EV infrastructure across the company. So local supplier I've worked with actually part of that key rollout. So lots of differing options there. And always with these activities, particularly in the public sector or the sort of larger companies, it's about that personal relationship with the decision makers. So find the decision makers, understand what they need, and then look at how can your business deliver that value for that business owner. So that's it for this morning. You can, if you haven't signed up already, there's a QR code you can scan there. You can email info@branduin.uk or me, Tony M, @branduin.co.uk if you want to take this further. There are sites to sign up on the Fit to Bid, and you can see Wandsworth and Southwest Hearts are on there as well. So yeah, any questions? Thanks very much for coming along, and it's been great to hear some of your ideas out there, and we're back again in November with our next session. So thanks a lot and enjoy the rest of the day.